The presentation outlines include a brief introduction of the scoring-based guidelines, detection and clinical interpretation of CNVs at Quest, and summary. The ACMG ClinGen guidelines for interpretation and reporting of constitutional CNVs and points-based scoring metrics. ACMG ClinGen guidelines has been electronically published on November 2019. Points-based scoring deletion metric calculator is available online in ClinGen webpage. Points-based scoring gain metric calculator is also available in ClinGen webpage. 5-tier classifications are done based on point-based scoring. Pathogenic CNVs have 0.99 or more points. Like pathogenic CNVs have 0.90 to 0.98 points. Uncertain CNVs have 0.89 to minus 0.89 points. Like the benign CNVs have minus 0.90 to minus 0.98 points, and benign CNVs have minus 0.99 or fewer points. Detection and clinical interpretation of CNVs at Quest Diagnostics. Platform, overview of macroarray team and macroarray committee activities, and SOPs. At Quest Diagnostic, for CNV detections, we are using chromosomal macroarray platform. The current platform is Affymetric Cytoscan HD and chest software by Thermo Fisher Scientific. Quest Diagnostic macroarray team includes directors from California, Virginia, and Massachusetts, genomic variant scientists, genomic science specialists. They are also licensed genetic counselors, supervisors, and technologists. Macroarray committee is consisted of representatives of directors, genomic variant scientists, and genomic science specialists. The macroarray committee has several meetings, including SOP update, which was weekly for 6 months until implementation of the new version, consensus meetings for classification of recurrent CNVs with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity as needed, and updates and revision of databases for interpretation of recurrent CNVs as needed. This pilot study shows the importance of consensus meetings in reducing reporting discrepancies among the directors for recurrent CNVs with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity. For example, 15q112 BP1 BP2 recurrent deletion region was reported as either pathogenic or likely pathogenic or uncertain before consensus meetings. However, right after consensus meetings, it was mainly reported as likely pathogenic. In conclusion, consensus meetings decrease CNV classification discrepancies among the genomic variant scientists and directors for the recurrent CNVs with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity. Our original macroarray SOP was based on the ACMG 2011 guidelines. However, we used 5-tier CNV classifications, including pathogenic, likely pathogenic, uncertain, likely benign, and benign. In our original SOP, we defined benign, likely benign, and pathogenic, likely pathogenic CNV classifications. If a CNV did not qualify for any other classification, it was classified as uncertain. We recently released the updated macroarray SOP based on the ACMG ClinGen scoring-based guidelines. Detection and clinical interpretation of CNVs at Quest Diagnostics, implementation of new guidelines, and ClinGen CNV guidelines implementation webinar surveys. At the beginning, we will utilize new guidelines for previously unclassified CNVs by the laboratory. Directors and genomic variant scientists will mainly utilize the scoring metrics. We made some modifications in the new guidelines as shown in next slides. We modified section 1b for both deletion and gain matrix as follows. If a CNV does not contain protein coding genes or any non-functionally important elements, we do not report, although ACMG ClinGen gives a score of minus 0.6. However, specific intronic deletions of established haploinsufficient genes in the literature would be reported as uncertain. We modified section 2a for deletion metric as follows. Because macroarray is not the ideal platform for intragenic CNVs, the highest score will be likely pathogenic. However, if a breakpoint of a given CNV is not clearly distinguished, it will be reported as uncertain. Exceptions, well-characterized and high-proc coverage genes such as DMD, and deletions involving large intronic segments of a haploinsufficient gene. In our previous SOP, we took account the size criteria. If a CNV was bigger than 3 megabase and included numerous genes, it was classified as pathogenic or lactopathogenic, depending on gene content. In the new version of SOP, we will not consider size criteria alone and will utilize scoring metrics. We modified section 2F for both deletion and gain metrics as follows. For scoring a CNV SP9, we use the criteria below. Frequency of a given CNV is 1% or higher, or CNV occurs in the general population, such as DGV, in more than 5 individuals, and or CNV occurs in internal database in more than 10 unrelated individuals, and lacks clinically relevant haplosensitive or triclosensitive protein coding REF-seq genes. We modified sections 2J and 2K of gain metric as follows. For intragenic duplication, we use a default classification of uncertain, even if exact breakpoints are distinguished by the macroarray platform, unless it is not a well-established pathogenic variant in the literature. We score prenatal and postnatal CNVs in similar fashion. In prenatal arrays, we report recurrent CNVs with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity as incidental finding. In general, we do not report autosomal recessive gene deletions with high DGV coverage. Currently, we report a hemizygous deletion CNV involving autosomal recessive gene as uncertain. However, reporting criteria of autosomal recessive genes under array committee discussion. We will not utilize the scoring metrics for the recurrent CNVs with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity if the QoS array committee has already agreed on the classification of the established CNVs based on the ClinGen dosage sensitivity score, as well as a comprehensive up-to-date literature review. For example, in our lab, 15q112 BP1-BP2 deletion is reported as lactopathogenic. However, we will utilize the scoring metrics if the QoS array committee has not yet agreed on the classification of an unestablished recurrent CNV with reduced penetrance and variable expressivity. In summary, we recently implemented new ACMG ClinGen guidelines. The modifications in the current matrix include Section 1b. We will not report a CNV if it does not contain any coding genes or exons. However, specific intronic deletions of established HI genes in the literature will be reported as uncertain. Deletion metric Section 2e. If both breakpoints are within the same gene, the highest classification is likely pathogenic. However, if a breakpoint of a given CNV is not clearly distinguished, it will be reported as uncertain. Exceptions, well-characterized and high probe coverage genes, such as DMD, and deletions involving large intronic segments of NHI gene. Gain metric sections 2J and 2K. Introgenic partial duplication of an established HI gene will be reported as uncertain, unless it is not a well-established pathogenic variant in the literature. Summary 2. Our modified criteria for an established benign CNVs include frequency of a given CNV is 1% or higher, or CNV occurs in the general population, such as DGV, in more than 5 individuals, and or internal database includes at least 10 or higher unrelated individuals, and lacks clinically relevant haplosensitive or triplosensitive protein coding REF6 genes. Finally, ACMG ClinGen suggests if carrier frequency of a well-known recessive disease is 1% or higher, do not classify as benign. However, at Quest Diagnostic, we do not report if autosomal recessive genes with the carrier frequency higher than 1%. I would like to thank Quest Diagnostic Macroarray Committee as well as Quest Diagnostic Macroarray team for this presentation.